All right, guys, I did want to give my breakdown on all of the major New Year's Six games. Obviously, the huge playoff semifinal games yesterday, the best playoff semifinal day in college football history, along with the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Iowa game against Kentucky, things like that. We're just going to go through each of these games, talk about them for a little bit. I know I've talked about the Ohio State-Georgia game, but I haven't talked about these other ones. So the Friday night game there was the Orange Bowl, and what a performance by Tennessee. And I was really disappointed in Clemson's offense. Very strange. Clemson, I believe, around 500 yards of offense, 14 points. You know, the interceptions by Cade Klubnik, the young QB, I'm still high on him, but it was not a good day. You give Tennessee credit. Joe Milton, 0 turnovers. Very important for him. And Tennessee is probably going to finish inside of the top 5 in the AP final poll, which is huge for their program. Certainly, that is a very good win for them over a Clemson team that came into this game with momentum as 5-point favorites, and they lose outright and really struggle when they got in the red zone and things like that. Moving to the Sugar Bowl, which was the noon game yesterday, it was a total mismatch overall with Alabama playing Bryce Young, Alabama playing Will Anderson, Bryce Young clinching, to me, the number 1 overall pick, although C.J. Stroud did play unbelievably well, I will say that. But Bryce Young, 5 touchdowns, 6 incompletions against the decent Kansas State defense. You know, very, very, very high I am on Alabama, and really just their overall team culture with Bryce Young playing, Will Anderson playing, when this could have very easily been a loss for Alabama if most of their guys sat out. How about Brian Branch, who's going to be a top 20 pick, the safety? He gets 4 tackles for loss. He plays. It's great to see. It's great for college football for these players to play in these games, not get injured, and actually help their stock even more with the narrative going around that everyone should sit out and protect and things like that. Bryce Young helped his stock. Brian Branch helped his stock by playing, so it is good to see. And then for Kansas State, it was a good year. It's just a mismatch. It really is. I give Kansas State credit. They had, I think 400 yards of total offense, so they were moving the ball, but overall, in terms of total talent, it is a mismatch. But guys, I do want to talk about something that a lot of casual people are saying. They're saying, listen, Alabama should have been into the playoff. They have more talent than everyone. This is what I'll say on it. Alabama certainly could have beaten Ohio State. They certainly could have beaten Georgia. They certainly could have beaten Michigan. The issue is, at some point, what happens on the field has to matter. Alabama barely beat Texas. Alabama barely beat Ole Miss. Alabama barely beat Texas A&M. Alabama lost 2 games. I'm sorry, I know they're very talented, but at some point, what happens on the field has to matter, and a lot of these people don't realize Alabama had a significant deficiency in terms of wide receivers throughout the entire season. It never got fixed. They never got a number 1 receiver. Never. So I think they certainly got the top 4 teams in the playoff right, especially with those games that we saw. And it's no knock on Alabama. Maybe Alabama will finish inside. You know what? Alabama probably will finish inside the top 5 over Tennessee, I would say, because they won this game very easily, and they'll probably keep them at number 5. Of course, Tennessee did beat Alabama. That's where that whole debate comes in, right? But I guess it doesn't really matter. It's just for postseason, off-season bragging rights. Either way, Alabama crushes Kansas State, but I'll say they've got 2 losses. I'm sorry. What happens on the field has to matter. Yes, they've got one of, if not the most talented roster, but we saw it week and week and week and week, every week, and I was waiting for it. I was waiting for an Alabama receiver to step up and be the number 1 guy, and it never happened. It just never happened. I'm sorry. So they win this game 45-20. The Music City Bowl, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Iowa 21-0. I said take Iowa on the money line. I said take the under 31. Both of those things hit. Kentucky's quarterback, 30 pass attempts under 100 yards. It's terrible football, folks. It really is. But I'll tell you this, guys, if I'm an NFL team, I'm drafting Sam Laporta in the second round. That is a good tight end. That is, we know Iowa with the tight ends, Noah Fant, George Kittle. They certainly produce elite ones. And really, these are the type of games that Iowa wins where, the other team's playing their backup quarterback. You get a pick six, and you win this game. Iowa was playing, I think, their third string because their starting quarterback, Petrus, was injured. The second string entered the transfer portal, and they win playing their third string. So, very boring game, pretty much what we expected. And Iowa, I guess, gets a little bit of, bragging rights there for the Big Ten. Although Kentucky, Will Levis not playing, Chris Rodriguez Jr. not playing. Either way, guys, I said to take Iowa. They end up winning. Let's get on to the TCU-Michigan game. One of the most epic college football playoff games in the short history of the playoff, especially semifinal games. TCU wins this game, and guys, when I went on my live stream last night, I had a lot of people that were shocked, and they were asking me, how does something like this happen? How did TCU win this game? Guys, Michigan lost this game in the first quarter. You drive right down the field, 4th and goal at the 2, you come up with nothing. You get that big pass play through the air. You have 1st and goal at the 1 yard line. Some people were arguing it should have been a touchdown, but still, if you get 1st and goal at the 1, you've got to score. Not only do you not score, you fumble on 1st and goal, and you fumble into the end zone, so it's a touchback. So it's basically a triple whammy. TCU gets the ball, not at their 1 yard line. They get the ball out at the 20. That is a horrible play for Michigan, and that set up the entire game. And then you had the J.J. McCarthy pick six. And that basically totally flipped the script and made Michigan in a horrible position that Michigan football, based on how they play, they never want to be in the trail position ever. And I think Michigan was doing a good job trying to come back, but TCU... generational defensive performance from that linebacker for TCU. All the offense overall, the running games, pretty crazy. Quentin Johnson coming back healthy, 6 catches, 163. Ronnie Bell had a big game. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But it was that first quarter, and Michigan falling behind early and having them play in the trail technique, trying to come back. It's not what they want to do. So I think Michigan lost this game really early on. The fumble is demoralizing. Throwing a pick six is a killer. 4th and goal at the 2. Those 3 plays, to me, really set the narrative of this game. And certainly TCU, Max Duggan, dual threat, running, the QB sneaks. It killed Michigan. I think Michigan playing this entire game in the, trailing, not good. And it's very hard. It basically kind of a carbon copy of the Ohio State-Georgia game. More times than not, the team that's trying to come back, everything has to go right for you, and it just didn't all go right for Michigan. And they end up losing this game 51-45, and not being able to convert there on that last drive. TCU wins. The yardage very evenly. Obviously, congratulations to TCU for that win there. Michigan without Blake Corum, it's very hard, of course, but it is something where they did beat Ohio State without Blake Corum. So either way, guys, I would say, just being non-biased, if these two teams faced off 10 times on a neutral field, I think Michigan would win 7 of them. That's not to take anything away from TCU. This was a really good win, and they do advance to the national title. And I would say this is a true Cinderella type team here. TCU is like 50th in terms of overall talent composite. So it is a true Cinderella feat for TCU in an absolute epic back and forth. I'm going to show the box score of this game, and just the second half scoring was ridiculous in terms of, I believe, Michigan scoring 39 points in the second half, or maybe like 36 points it was. Either way, how about Michigan's kicker? Michigan legitimately has an NFL kicker. The kid made a 59-yard field goal with room to spare at the end of the first half. That was crazy, but either way, good for TCU. Crazy, one of their best wins in program history, and they're on to the national title. And then, guys, of course, the crazy nightcap primetime game with Georgia beating Ohio State 42-41, coming back after being down. You know, some interesting things happened in this game. I've talked about it at length, and there's new videos coming out. It's just so disgusting and so sad. But, guys, C.J. Stroud, what a great game. Really tight, generational type performance. The running, the throwing. I think Ryan Day made one really bad call on a 1st and 10 at the Georgia's 30-yard line with 25 seconds left. He took the ball out of C.J. Stroud's hand. You got to let him throw there. Georgia, you know, obviously, you give them credit and stuff. It is hard to you get excited for this TCU Georgia national title. I'm not going to lie, guys. I think the stars were aligning, and I said it was going to be Ohio State, Michigan, but I did set, guys, I said, listen, TCU plus 7.5. I had them losing by 3, so I got that. And I did have Ohio State winning outright, so at least they covered the 6.5 point spread. I said they would, and everyone, so many public people, they were all picking Georgia to cover the spread. It's like, this is crazy. Do you not know how college football works? And Ohio State totally controls about 75 to 80% of this game. I will say Jim Knowles' defense just with a crazy breakdown there in the second quarter where it was big play after big play after big play. Georgia, and then my goodness, Georgia down 11 points. They get a 70-yard touchdown. It reminded me of Jacoby Jones again when he had that touchdown from Joe Flacco against Peyton Manning in Denver back in 2013 in that crazy upset. It's like the one thing you can't allow to happen when you're up by 11 points with 8 minutes left. You cannot allow a 70-yard touchdown. That is the one thing you cannot allow to happen. If they get a 7-play drive, at least they'll eat up 3 or 4 minutes. You can't allow that to happen. And it ended up happening. Obviously, the situation at the end, C.J. Stroud, the long run, 50-yard field goal attempt, you cannot trust that. There is just no way that can happen. You have to get more yards somehow. And I think Georgia did a great job. Georgia, at the end of that game, smelled what Ohio State wanted to do. They smelled the blood in the water, and they blitzed Ohio State. Ohio State had 2nd and 11 after a Dolan Hayden 1-yard loss. Georgia blitzed. C.J. Stroud threw it away because he's afraid to take a sack and really get out of field goal range. 3rd and 11. Georgia blitzes again. Stroud has to get rid of it again because he's getting pressured. They knew Ohio State was trying to get short yard passes. They pressured, and I think that really helped Georgia to hold Ohio State, and very key for Georgia, not allow Ohio State to get any more yards. So, guys, both of these games were amazing. I do think it might be, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, I do think it might be an anticlimactic national title here with Georgia being 13-point favorites over TCU. But we've seen TCU get doubted before. They were, honestly, at one point, they were 9.5-point underdogs against Michigan, and they basically led the entire game. So, guys, this is college football. Anything can happen. We'll have to see what happens with the national title. But my instant thought with TCU Georgia is actually the under 63. That is my instant bet that I'm thinking about. And guys, don't take that for gospel. But I'm just kind of seeing how these teams are trending. And I understand why they put the over-under at 63 because these games are being very high scoring. I understand it. But I don't know, guys. We'll have to see. I think there was something like 170 points combined in these two games. So it was an amazing college football Saturday. For Michigan, I don't know what the future is for them. Obviously, it still has to be a successful season. You win the Big Ten. You beat Ohio State on the road. But, my goodness, you got crushed last year in a semifinal game where you weren't competitive at all against Georgia. Now you have the talent advantage against TCU, and you lose again. It's got to be demoralizing. Even though you beat Ohio State, it's still good, still a good season, but I don't know what happens with Michigan. I'm not going to speculate on Harbaugh. I do know he wanted the Minnesota job last year. He went in for a second interview on National Signing Day. He didn't get it. I don't know if he'd be interested in Indianapolis. This is just speculation. Who knows? For all I know, any of these coaches could go to the NFL. It just depends. So either way, it is TCU versus Georgia. We do still have Monday games left, and then the Monday after this Monday, it is the national title between TCU and Georgia. And I do think it's going to really struggle to draw ratings because Georgia won the national title last year. People are kind of already sick of them. And then TCU being a very small school, I'll be interested to see the overall ratings on these two games. These two games should have crazy ratings, even with it being New Year's Eve. Both of these games should do very well because they were amazing. So guys, amazing college football Saturday. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.